This time Milan flashes at a bowling ball that moves away off the deck outside off stump. We're talking about Tubby Taylor finding out who's going to be Australian captain. He was on his mate Peter Taylor's farm, the off spinner. The board gives him the tick, and then Ian McDonald, the man in charge, rings you. Then what happens?
Yeah, so all he does is ring up. Peter Taylor answers the phone. He says, "Put Tubby on," and he says, "Tubby, you're it. I'll ring you later," and that's it, and hangs up. Because he's worried, because it's a mobile, that someone's got can obviously connect through to his phone and hear what we're going to say. He doesn't want to.
Yes.
Root works it 4 to square, times it really well.
Oh, yeah.
Times it beautifully, in fact. That was just a flick of the wrist from the England skipper, and it rolls to the rope. Root moves to 13, England 2 for 48.
Yeah, so he doesn't want people to know that I'm the captain, because it's not going to be announced until the following day. So he rings me, he goes home, rings me back on a landline, and then tells me the full story that I'm the captain. He's booked me on a plane out of Moree the next morning. I've got to be at the airport at this time, blah, blah. Peter Taylor takes me to the airport the next morning in some 1971 diesel semi-trailer or something it was.
More runs for Root, this time backward a square. Should just be a single, and it is. He moves to 14, 2 for 49.
So I'm sitting with a suit on this metal seat. It didn't even have any seat cover on it. Dumps me off at the airport, so I'll see you later tonight. So I fly back to Sydney, go through the process of meeting the media and giving my thoughts on the team, what have you. Go to the SCG for a photo with my baggy green cap, which they brought someone else's in because I didn't have that with me. And then go back to the airport, fly back to Moree, went to Cascade Restaurant that night, had a few beers and a bottle of champagne, which they put on, which was terrific.
Milan's beaten on the inside. It thunders into the thigh pad.
And then spent the night at Peter Taylor's farm for the next couple of nights, and then went to Glen Innes after that. Had a beer at the pub there, and some guy thought he recognised me, but wasn't sure if it was me. And ended up making my way across to Grafton in northern New South Wales with all these people just thinking, what are you doing up here? Aren't you the captain of the Australian cricket team? You should be here, there and everywhere. Well, I was in northern New South Wales at Gurley, Moree and Glen Innes, and then Grafton.
Great story. Bowling again, the 5th ball of his over. Milan just drops onto the offside, 2 for 49. So, your first day on the job, what do you try and bring to the table?
Oh, I think sometimes you try and bring too much to the table. I had Heels over. Heels was the vice captain. Heels and I got together, and I had a chat one night and a few beers and chatted about what we're going to do when we take over the side and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, you do all this wonderful planning, and then I think my first test match as captain, I made a pair. I made naught in each innings of the game. Forgot about worrying about making a few runs.
Milan's beaten on the outside this time. That's a cracker from Scotty. More to come from Mark Taylor in a moment. So I've heard Greg Chappell talk about this, Tub, that the first thing you have to do as captain is continue to make runs. So a pair in your first test as skipper.
Yeah, it wasn't a great start. And we lost that test match by a wicket against Pakistan at Karachi. And the last two put
was
on...
that the stumping?
Yeah, the last two put on 57 to win the test, and the winning runs came via a missed stumping from Heels, where, to be fair to him, the ball ran along the ground off Warney. It went through his legs for 4 byes. That was the winning runs. So the next one goes through to the keeper, no run. But it taught me straight away that exactly what you said there about Greg Chappell. I needed to actually make sure I focus on myself. That at the end of the day, there's only 11 players play the game, and you've all got to make sure that you have your own individual input to go with the team. So, fortunately, the next test I made a 60. Slats, I think, made a good 100. In the end, we lost the series 1-0, but we played really good cricket. Probably had the better of the series, but didn't win it.
Nicely driven by Milan. Beautiful work by Nathan Lyon. The point to stop any thought of run. 2 for 50. So, as captain, obviously you had some tremendous successes. Was there a point? What was the hardest part of your captaincy is what I'm trying to ask you, Tub. Whether it was selection or your own form or team not playing well or pressure from the media, what was the hardest point of being captain of Australia for you personally?
I think my own form at times was the hardest bit. I had a bad run in 97, 90, yeah, Mason 97. and that is the hardest because you can't get away from it. You're always asked by the media about when are you going to make runs. And batting's one of those things. You only need one good ball or a bad shot or a bit of bad luck and you're out. It's not like being a bowler where you can bowl a number of balls and find yourself back and forth. So I had a bad run. That was probably the hardest bit. And occasionally letting players know they weren't playing, particularly someone like Michael Slater. Dropped a couple, I got once in my captaincy time. That was really hard because Slats and I had such a good combination going.
Milan climbs into it backward a point. It's a glorious square drive by David Milan. He's starting to get into his work now as well. He moves to 17, England 2 for 54. So a conversation like that, we might need to pass this into the next over. Are you just up front with a teammate and a good mate and just say, listen, the runs aren't there? Or do you try and give them encouragement that you're going to work your way back into the team? Or how do you go about a conversation like that?
Exactly, as you said, you try and do what you can. You say that, the selectors have decided to leave you out and, and obviously everyone's disappointed and shows their disappointment in different ways. But try and offer them, next ball's just defended down, no run. You try and offer them a light at the end of the tunnel. Get some runs and we'll get you back in.
Your dealings with the media, Tub, you've always been very affable when you were captain and then when you've moved into the media. Did something you worked on when things weren't going well and you were getting those tricky questions? Did you have a way of dealing with it to keep things on an even keel?
Oh, you try to work on the theory that they're just trying to do their job as well, and obviously you don't always agree with them, and I don't always agree with them now either, to be totally honest. But you just try and rationalise it by saying they're just doing their job and all I can do is do my job the best I can do.
Bowling to Root, beautiful cover drive. That is straight out of the textbook under C for cover drive. High elbow, 4 runs, 2 for 58.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks good, Joe Root. Yeah, but so dealing with the media, it's not easy. I think it's getting harder for the players because there's so much media now. There's so many different angles and the social media's just added to it all that so much of their time now is trying to, look after the brand, your own brand and that of the teams, and I think that takes a lot out of the players these days, and it can sometimes be very unfair also. So that's something that's getting harder and harder all the time.
There's no escape from it nowadays, is there? That's Root. He's over his bat now, facing Boland. He leaves it. That's the one that he's occasionally flashed at and been caught behind on, Joe Root. England 2 for 58. And did you read the press, Tub, when you were going through those periods where you weren't making runs? Were you a reader of the newspaper, or were you one of those blokes that said, I'm just not going to buy the paper, I'm not going to look at it?
I didn't look at it a lot. I'd be lying if I said I didn't read it at all. Occasionally you do, but when you're not playing well, you don't really need to read it because you don't need someone to tell you how badly you're playing. You can feel it yourself. You know that the barbs are out there, that people are asking questions about your form and what have you. And that was the problem.
Root's trapped on the crease, but no dramas.
That was the problem with being captain, is that you couldn't get away from it. You didn't have to read it because I was being asked questions about my own form all the time. And that's where it was really difficult, because you'd just like to have said, well, go away, I'm not doing the press anymore. I'm just going away to work on my own game and get it right. I couldn't do that as Australian captain. That's where it is a bit harder, but it's also rewarding when you can break through, make some runs and put it all behind you. It can be very satisfying also.
Great to hear from Mark Taylor on Triple M Cricket about the issues when you're captain of Australia.